edge of night.
Hi, and welcome to Queers and Soaps. We're doing a very special edition of Queers and Soaps called The Edge of Night, a soap opera that aired 68 years ago today, April 2nd, 1956, and ended in 1984. Tommy over all the credits, and we'll get into it. All right, this show is very impressive. Me and Karen started watching from 1979 on I must give special thanks to the Edge of Night Man from YouTube who put on these episodes for us to watch. And the clips that we're going to be showing are from his YouTube site. Um, so thank you very much. I hope you don't mind that we take some clips from you to make this special that we hope will be wonderful for Edge of Night fans. Um, so it's a crime drama mystery, like I said, from 1956, created by Irving Vendig, who wrote for the Perry Mason radio show. There was a total of 7,420 episodes made. It it the central character of the show is Mike Carr, who I guess is the Perry Mason character. He was they have him listed as crime fighter slash cop finishing law school. He was involved with Sarah Lane, who's supposed to be, I guess, the Della Street of the show.
She kind of is.
Yeah. And then, so they killed Sarah off after a bunch of years. And then he fell for a Nancy Carr, or Nancy, I forget her maiden name, Nancy something. Um, but she ends up being Nancy Carr. His wife died like about a year before he started dating Nancy. He got married April 22nd, 1963. They didn't seem to have, so I looked up some storylines. They didn't seem to have anything major come between them until 1976. Nancy was a reporter, got involved with criminals, Bo and Tony Saxon. I think Tony
Oh,
Saxon is Deborah's dad, who was in the mob.
oh,
So
well,
I don't know which, I
that's
don't know
before our time.
exactly. Yeah, it's before our time. I put mob dude. But yeah, that's why Deborah, I guess, became a cop because of her dad being an evil man. But she and Mike had separated for a little bit. Um, then Bo got murdered, who was, I guess, the guy that got between them somehow. And then they ended up getting back together. Mike was tried and convicted for Bo's murder, but was later exonerated.
This happens a lot on Edge of Night.
Yeah, well, this was from 1976 to 77, and that I feel like that's probably Mike Carr's last like major storyline because he's kind of very sidetracked where we're at now.
Yeah, he seems more like an add-on to Draper and April's storyline than in his own. And
Mhm.
even his wife has more of a storyline than he does
Yeah,
when she's dealing with the drug dealer.
yeah. So that's that with them. Let me see if I have any other facts. It aired on CBS from April 2nd to 1956 to November 28th, 1975. Then ABC picked it up, which is kind of unheard of back then for other networks to pick up other shows. And they aired it from December 1st, 1975 to December 28th, 1984. It's a shame CBS didn't take it back and they just like bounced back and
Like
forth.
a hot potato of a television show.
So we still have it.
It's a good show. I'm surprised that it didn't get picked up by somebody else. It's
I
really
know.
it's a fun thing to watch, and it moves quick. It's very fast paced.
It's very fast, and it's very well written for a 22-minute episode 22-minute shows because there's a lot going on in these episodes, and it makes you like want more. So the stuff that Karen and I watched, we watched from I want to say we watched a couple of the older episodes from early '79 to then July '79. There's like complete episodes from that and then onward. We're in March of 1980 now, but we're gonna go up to a certain point for the special. The writers during this time I just looked up was Steve Lerman and Henry Slezar. I did not look up what else they did because I didn't have time. But as I was like, oh, I better find out the writers for like this year that we're watching.
And if you know if
'Cause
they
that's
did
important.
something cool, make sure you put that in the comments so we can look it
Yeah,
up.
for sure.
Because
Well,
I'm looking it up.
I'm sure Edge of Nightman probably knows everything. So, so he could probably maybe if we'll do another special and maybe he'll get involved. That would be nice. And he can tell us all the cool stuff because there are some cool stuff. I looked up the winter storyline and I was like blown away. I'm like, this is amazing. We only saw clips of that storyline.
Yeah, because when we started was when April was basically in a sanitarium.
Yeah. And we saw like random things. She got out of the sanitarium, and we don't know how. I guess she escaped, but then how come she
No,
didn't
she
get taken
escaped.
back?
She escaped. We saw that.
Yeah,
We
but
saw what happened.
yeah, but how didn't she get escape? You go back.
No, because the storyline was that Miles, right? Miles Kavanaugh. Miles
It's
is
her brother.
yeah, the wife Denise Kavanaugh. She tried to frame April she's trying to frame Miles for killing her. And like April was like crazy. And like it was kind of in that first episode, like they hint at things because we didn't see all of it. So they put her in the asylum thinking she was crazy. And here it turned out that Denise's father is the one who actually gave her the overdose so that Miles didn't go down for it. And I think they thought because initially Denise convinced April to take the syringe and give her the shot. And then
Real quick, is Denise the redhead?
Denise is the one that was haunting Miles in a later
Okay.
Okay. Now she had a disease and she was dying and she was in pain every day, but she wanted Miles to give her the last dose so that she could, I guess, have the last laugh and have him go to prison for murdering her. And instead he wasn't there. So April was going to give her the overdose, not knowing she was going to give the overdose. And Denise was just playing it up and going, I'm dying, and I'm in so much pain. Help me. But like,
and didn't Denise kill someone, another man?
I'm not. I think so. I think so.
I thought we were watching when that old guy died, and I think she was killing him or something. I forget what the story was because we didn't have that much of it.
Yeah. So her father, April was like, I can't do it, and she's like, just push the handle, and she's like, I can't do it, and then the father ended up doing it, but I think they thought April did it, and that's why they had taken her away. So while she's in the sanitarium and they arranged, that was really fun because we did get to see her escape. She escaped in the trunk of a car. And that's
with the blanket.
Yeah, with the blanket comes from. And this blanket, guys, it goes on and on. It's in everything. She stole that blanket from the sanitarium and has it to the current time. But
I'm surprised you don't have that blanket in the background because you've been making that blanket.
In the car. Oh, I'm the worst. It's actually in the car from the last time I was at your house working on it.
It was so what were the colors? It's yellow, white, and orange, like one of those old school blankets that everybody had in the 70s. Anybody that was everybody had these blankets.
It's a granny, it's like a granny stripe blanket, like with the chevron.
It brings you back. Yeah.
It's crazy. So I'm making it because I got obsessed with it, but it's autumnal colors and she walks around in it. But the whole part of the storyline is where she thinks she's crazy is because she's having visions of her own grave, and she's having visions of her mother, and she keeps saying, my mother's coming back for me. And it turns out that she goes to her house, her family home, and finds out that the original April died, and they replaced her with April, who was also named April, and she was Margo Huntington's daughter. And she didn't know this. And the mother actually, I think she drowned herself after she escaped the sanitarium. So when they found out that she wasn't crazy, she wasn't making any of this up, it was all true. These were all real memories. They didn't bother to put her back in the sanitarium, but they did skip a few episodes. So we're kind of iffy on that.
So the April, so they killed off an April.
She fell down the stairs and died in the house. She was a little girl. And I had to piece this together from things that Miles said, because they had a flashback where Miles was saying that he called and talked to the mother, and the mother had said that the little girl fell down the stairs. And he asked if she was okay. And she's like, yeah, she's fine. There's barely a mark on her. But she had, meanwhile, buried her daughter, April, and replaced her with Margo Huntington's daughter, April.
Wow.
So that's why they thought she was crazy, was because she was having all these flashbacks to her mother. And like her mother was schizophrenic, I believe, because then later on they say Miles might be schizophrenic. So Miles isn't her brother by blood.
So, okay, that's what I was going to say.
Right.
So but he was related to the other April.
Yes, the one that died.
Wow.
And that's why
crazy. See, this show's
looked into
batshit
this.
crazy.
It was so
This show's
insane
batshit crazy.
because on the property, on the family house property, there is a family plot graveyard. And April made Miles and Draper go out and look, and they actually found April's grave. And it was the original April. And then
Wow.
after that, they were like, well, she's not crazy. She was right.
Yeah, I
And
remember we were watching stuff, but we were like, "What's going on?" But we were still like fascinated, like, "What is happening?"
Meanwhile,
I'm glad you looked it up. I didn't look that one up.
But meanwhile, Denise's father had confessed to being the one that gave her the overdose. So everything was cleared up while she was on the run with her blanket.
So then we will point out that Denise did die
Yes.
in the episodes that we saw. So then we found some other random stuff from I think June of that year, maybe May, of with Winter Austin, which I heard Winter Austin was like a good girl at first, but things kind of happened where she went a little bit bad. Well, I guess really bad. I mean, she was just trying to cover up her stuff, you know? What are you gonna do?
That was the
So
porn ring, right? Like there was like a
yes.
pornography ring.
So yeah, I did look up this story and it's very
Okay.
fun. So there was two winners in the year or two that she was there. This was the second winner. Stephanie Braxton is this one's name. We don't have the first one. I'm guessing they just switched over, unless she's another winner. I don't know. like there's two Aprils. I
How
don't know
many
now.
twins are there on this show?
So she was tried for the murder of Wade Meacham, who was a close friend of your girlfriend Margo Huntington, by the
Believe
way.
me, I know. Margo hid evidence and everything else.
Yeah, she's pretty bad.
He's giving me looks because Margo's my favorite.
I love Margo too. I love a good villain.
I'm
I
sorry,
do love
she
it, but
did nothing
she says
wrong. She did nothing wrong.
she did everything wrong. Stop
No,
it.
she didn't. I love her.
So so Winter was trying to cover up her porn past. Everyone does a porn at some point in their life, right? So this guy, Wade, comes to town. He buys a porn theater. He wants to show the porn that she did. So he ends up dead, shot, whatever, in a hotel room. She's found not guilty for the crime because Mike Carr saw a tape. So apparently there was some kind of jacket incident. On a tape, Winter was wearing a different jacket collar than the other person that killed them with, whatever. So got her off. Then you find out she actually did kill him.
That was so crazy. I remember we were screaming. Yeah. It was so perfectly done because she's innocent. And then it's like, she's not innocent. She totally did. It was amazing. Such good writing.
It was really good because that's very twisty. Especially Mike Carr is the hero of the series apparently, and he's like, but I mean, who thinks you're going to set up a tape? So yeah, the guy that she set up a tape with was named Tank. She pushed him off a roof to cover up, because she got away with it. So now she's got to kill everybody else involved. Nicole inadvertently got some kind of footage, but didn't know what Winter did. And she was friends with Nicole, apparently, from what I read. They were friends.
I know. You figured it out. You figured out that those shots of me couldn't have been on that tape unless they were taken the night of Wade's murder. And that must have meant that I cooperated. And that must have meant that I was in the studio with Tank that night. Yes, and you were going to tell everybody that, weren't you? No. I don't know anything like that, Winter. Yes. No. Yes, you were going to tell everybody. And I can't let you do that.
So yeah, Tank faked the tape, whatever. She actually did do it. She killed Wade. She shot him in his hotel room to keep her secret. Um, then she stalked Nicole, who had proof that she did it, but didn't know she had proof that she did it.
Yeah, poor Nicole.
Trapped Nicole in the news studio with scissors. She had these big giant scissors. Why you have big giant scissors? Maybe for wires. I don't know why you'd have them in a news station.
You know what? They were so big, and I was like, is that just like 70s
They were.
style scissors? They were just like, we just make them big. I don't know, but they were like big
Yikes.
metal, almost like shears, like big
Yeah.
shears.
Yeah, and they're just like sitting on the news desk. They ended up on some kind of catwalk. They fought. She fell and later died in the hospital. And then she told Logan as she was dying, she did everything for him and wanted to hear that he loved her one last time. And I don't think he said it.
He didn't
Poor
because
thing.
he wasn't in love with her at that time.
But she
And
was dying. He could have just throw her a bone.
I remember
I mean, she
we
did do
talked
everything
about
for him.
we talked about this at the time, and we were both like, she's gonna be dead in 5 minutes. Tell her whatever she wants so she can have peace. And
Right?
this guy, like to her face, was like, yeah, I don't. And I'm just gonna wait until you die so I don't have to say it. It was kind of rough. And
Yeah.
we weren't even like really fans of Logan yet. We were too new. And
Yeah, like I
loved
liked
him
him.
now.
I liked him because I knew him from Falcon Crest. So I was like, oh, Dan, the cop, the sheriff. But yeah, so that's the last we saw of that. And then the next scenes were like in July of 1979, and it picks up with the introduction of Owen and Nola Madison. Nola apparently recently checked out of a rehab.
Yep.
They have a son together, and he has a daughter from a previous marriage or whatever. We kind of get the feeling that he's a dirty dog. I don't know if it's just
Owen?
that. Yeah,
It seems like, well, I don't know, because they both seem like
we don't know.
they may have cheated on each other multiple times because they're trying to, like, Nola's trying to pass off a kid. They're all lying in this relationship.
Right.
You get the idea that Nola was obsessed with Owen and wanted the relationship more than anything. So she was saying and doing things that were shady to get him. So I think what happened in the relationship was he was with the woman who had Paige, and Nola kind of said she was pregnant to get Owen back.
Mm.
Because Nola's MO is to lie, cheat, and steal to get whatever she wants.
And she also probably acted up as she was a drunk as well. So she probably caused them a lot of drama because they are very strained when we meet them.
Yes.
The whole family is screwed up, which is why they're a great soap family.
They're perfect, and they're all in love.
And she's kind of a washed up actress. Like, she hasn't been anything for a while, all that stuff. We have Owen I don't know really what got him crushing on Deborah, but he ends up crushing on a cop named Deborah Saxon, who is that daughter of that Tony guy that I mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
who we don't see. I guess he ends up dead or in jail at this point. I don't know. He's really not mentioned in what we see. Nola is offered a movie role. She is offered it to play a witch named Hester Atherton.
Yes.
In the movie that should be made called Mansion of the Damned.
I would watch this movie. I remember every piece they did from the movie was so great. And I was like, this is like one of those old-fashioned horror movies that Christopher Lee would be in. And I really wanted to see it. And I was disappointed that it wasn't a real movie.
They could have done such wonderful things with this. They could have totally filmed a movie and like had it air on like a Friday night or something, like after the Edge of Night, like a relation series, but they didn't. It would have been really fun though.
Yeah.
Because they show them film the movie and they have constant problems. Like, it's basically a cursed set.
Mm-hmm.
And you at some points you think like Nola might be involved, but sometimes you really don't know what's happening.
There seems to be almost like a supernatural element to what's happening, and they imply that it's the devil most of the time, but I'm sure it's Nola all of the time, or Eddie, her friend Eddie.
Well, she does do some like because as a witch, she's doing some spells in the play. So you're almost thinking like maybe the spells are making something happen on this set. But yeah, like it's never proven that she did it though.
It's
There's never any
not
signs.
proven, but it's heavily implied when they're done filming the movie and Nola is talking to Eddie about how they like to play pranks and do things, that most of what was done was probably the two of them for PR. We know for sure that the noose that Deborah finds in the studio was done by them. It was done by Nola to scare Deborah.
Deborah. Oh, that one, yeah. Because she set her up to come see the set
she
or
did.
whatever, right?
She did, because Deborah was sniffing around her husband, and Owen is walking around going, "Oh, we basically have an open relationship. Nola and I aren't really like that anymore. We're definitely dating other people." And Deborah, I feel bad because, like, why did she believe that? That's always a lie.
Yeah, right. So yeah, other things that happened on this set was some guy collapsed. Who was the
He was a
production
director.
assistant?
No, he was a
He
director.
was a what? The
He was a
director
very famous,
collapsed.
he was a very famous director, and he overheated and dropped dead on the set.
There was a fire, a camera fell, a chandelier almost crushed Steve. Steve's another cop with Deborah that we'll get into in a little bit. They have kind of a little bit of a storyline, kind of separate from this stuff. There was also apparently a ghost was seen at some point, and Nicole saw the devil.
Yes, Nicole did see the devil, and they had a production party, a break party for the thing, and people were seeing stuff out on the balcony. And they were like, "Is it a plant falling over? Is it Satan?" Like, they were really being freaked out by everything that they were doing, and it was awesome. It was good October storyline, to be sure.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, because it was like it was actually, I want to say like the end of September all the way to like Halloween. It was a major storyline.
Yes.
But it was very fun. We loved watching it. And I also said, yeah, unclear if Nola did these things because do you really think she dressed up like Satan? Like, I don't know.
I do.
I
I think it was either
I
her or Eddie. I think they were both working in cahoots to do all that.
And then meanwhile, didn't we find out something on the set? Is that when we found out Brian was actually someone else's?
Completely worn out.
Nola, I want to talk about him now. I want to talk about Brian and about Paige.
What about them?
Well, I finally figured out what's going on in that house of yours. I'm sorry I didn't figure it out sooner, but now that I know, it's making me sick.
You know what exactly?
About how much those kids feel about each other.
Who told you? Where did you hear this nonsense?
It's not nonsense, Nola. It's love. Those kids are in love with each other, and it's eating them up alive. You talk about hell, those kids are living in it.
That's ridiculous. It was just a childish crush, Eddie. Nothing more than that. They'll get over it. I promise you. They have to get over it.
Sure, they have to get over it. They can never be happy because they're brother and sister, which means that they're going to spend the rest of their lives just trying to forget.
Eddie, please.
For God's sake, Nola, how could you have let this happen? How could you? You love Brian, I know you do.
Of course I love Brian, but that doesn't mean that I have to take on all of his
It means that you could have told him the truth. You could have saved him all this suffering. My God, Nola, don't you remember? Brian isn't Owen's child, he's my son.
So when they decided to do the movie, Eddie came to town. Now, Eddie is Nola and Owen's best friend. And it turns out Eddie is absolutely head over heels for Nola, which sucks because Nola's head over heels for Owen. And we basically have the song Love Stinks. And when he came, we find out that Paige and Brian are in love with one another. But they think they're half siblings. Like, they're half siblings. So they're like, but they didn't know they were half siblings at first. And then Nola told them they were half siblings. And then they tried to stay away from each other, but they were so in love with one another. And we were creeped out every week.
So gross.
It was so gross. I don't understand this storyline because even the resolution of it is gross. And when we get to it, we find out that Nola was pregnant by Eddie with Brian. And that's how she lured Owen back. And Eddie says to her, those kids are in love and we need to tell them so they can be happy. And Nola's like, no, they'll get over it. Forget about it. We're not doing it. And Eddie is so upset by it. And when Eddie dies, his will explains that Brian is his son, which totally cracks the rest of Owen and Nola's relationship into pieces.
And that also means that they are not siblings at all, which, yes, you could be together, but at the same time, they grew up together.
It's not.
So they thought they were brother and sister, but I don't know. It is a skeevy storyline, and it went on for too long.
And it's supposed to be, and I guess in a way it is a happy ending, but I just cannot stop being skeeved out by it. Like I can't, like they were raised as siblings in the same house, and it's just, I know they're not really related, but
All right, well, let's go. I do have to go into a little bit more with Paige Madison. So when we meet Paige, she apparently is freshly out of a cult.
yay.
And there's Tobias. This man Tobias is around the town. He seems to be trying to kill her, while she's protecting him every which way. So really, he really shouldn't have tried to kill her. But I guess he was, you got to get rid of your loose ends,
Right. Right.
If you run a cult, you got to. She knows too much.
Yeah.
Tobias?
Hello, Paige.
And that's what he was doing because he was killing people left, right, and center. And he was like, Paige betrayed me. And we're like, you don't even know if Paige betrayed you. And he's like, whatever, just kill her.
And meanwhile, we have Elliot Dorn, who owns the bar. Well, Margo owns the bar called the Unicorn. Elliot runs it because Elliot and Margo are married.
But Margo bought it for him. She basically bought her boy toy a present. That's why she bought the unicorn.
And he's this handsome, charming man that me and Karen would probably fall for.
I think he's good for a fling. I think he'd be fun.
Yeah, for sure. And he seems to know what he's doing because he has a little obsessive woman come back because she wants a piece. And then he has Raven on the side, which we'll get into in a little bit. So he's got some things going on while married to Margo. So all this to say, there's a bartender at the Unicorn is working there for months, and he's just like this random bartender. We don't think anything of it. Ends up being Tobias, which was pretty cool because I didn't see that coming. So, and then we see like Tobias, there's this other man involved too. I think he's trying to get somebody else to kill Paige because he doesn't want anything on his hands because that's what cult leaders do, right?
Yeah, he has this guy who he wants to send out to kill Paige, and I think he even gives him the gun to do it. And they set it up because doesn't it happen at the restaurant? It happens at the Unicorn where they have that big
the shootout. Oh,
yeah.
So before we get into that, there's a reason what's going on with Tobias as well. A few months earlier, or however many months earlier, Steve ended up shooting Tobias's brother.
Right.
I forget his name, but he was a kid, basically.
He was 14 or 15. He was young.
He had a real gun, but Tobias replaced it with a fake gun. So basically, like, Steve wasn't in danger and he killed a kid without a gun. I guess Steve should have shot him in the leg, but whatever. He ended up killing him. We
didn't know that initially. Initially, we thought that Steve shot a kid. So because Steve shot a kid, he was so guilty, he left the police force and became basically free security, like he was a security guard. And he became Paige's bodyguard. And they did try out a little chemistry between him and Paige, but Paige was too busy being in love with her brother.
And Tobias. She was obsessed with Tobias too because
Paige has problems. She has problems.
So besides all that stuff, it ends up at the Unicorn. There's some kind of shootout, and Tobias ends up getting killed. Right? I think he died. Right?
It doesn't go right. Like the guy is supposed to shoot Paige, and it doesn't work out because Steve is there. So Steve
Yeah.
ends up, I think he takes out the hitman, and then Tobias tries to take out Paige, and they run away together, don't they? Like Tobias and Paige, because she doesn't think he was going to kill her.
I think so, yeah.
And he takes these suitcases full of money and he takes her to a room, and he's basically like plotting to shoot her right before he leaves. And she's just like, Tobias would never do anything like that because we're homies. And it's like, Paige, get therapy. You're in love with your brother. There's a hot cop right there. I mean, because Guthrie is hot, and you're looking at Brian, your brother.
And Tobias, who was cute as well.
Tobias was cute.
But he's trying to kill her all the time.
So bad choice.
I think killing a 14-year-old kid is a hell of a good reason.
It was self-defense. I had to shoot him before he shot me.
With a cat pistol?
With a real gun. The same gun you killed Zach with. The same one your brother had in his hand. Now, I know it and you know it. And I think it's time that other people knew it, Mickey.
Yeah, well, just send me a letter, okay? Now get out of my way!
What the hell is this? $100 bills.
Yeah, well, just give me that, man. It's mine.
Must be more to Mickey Dials than meets the eye. What are these tips from the Unicorn? Must be $1 million here.
You count pretty fast, Guthrie.
You know, I didn't think I was going to take you down to headquarters for questioning, but I think that's a pretty good idea.
I'm not going anywhere with you, cop.
I know.
Oh, and then
Steve rescues her.
And wasn't there a maid involved with trying to kill? Oh, when was that? Oh, yeah. When Paige was locked in her room, they knew somebody was trying to kill her. They locked Paige in the room, and the maid that worked for Nola and Owen tried to kill her, right?
So they hired a new maid. I think it was the regular maid wasn't there for whatever reason. So they hired this new maid, and of course, classically in a French maid outfit. And she gets Nola drunk so that she can try and kill Paige. And she's so cool about it. She goes in the room and she's just like, one little drink, because Nola's an alcoholic. She can't resist. So Nola gets blitzed. And then this woman tries to get into the room to kill Paige. Again, this was brilliant writing because Nola's passed out on the bed. She doesn't know what's happening. And Owen's pissed at her for being drunk, even though she got tricked into it. Like, it was good.
Yeah, there's so much in 20 minutes. I'm telling you, it's really good. It's great writing. Bold and the Beautiful can learn some things. So I guess is that pretty much it with that? Oh, then how did that maid die? Didn't somebody kill her? Didn't Tobias end up killing her?
No, Steve.
Well, I know she ended up getting shot, and then didn't she go to Tobias for help? And then she basically,
she got shot, and she ran to Tobias for help, and he killed her. And then when Tobias got shot, Tobias didn't die. He ran and kidnapped Miles, and he was holed up with Miles.
Oh, right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, he kidnapped Miles, Kavanaugh, and he was like, you need to help me. You need to save me. And Miles is like, I don't have anything with me. I don't know what I'm going to do for you. Like, oh no, they kidnapped him to save the maid. And then the maid died. And then they were going to shoot Miles because the maid died. And he's just like, I don't even know why I'm here. Like, we have no operating theater. He's like, well, because he wanted antibiotics. He wanted an operating theater. He wanted bags of blood. And Tobias was like, do whatever you can do here. And he's like, what I can do here is watch her die.
Oh, yeah. He was trying to save the maid, which was weird because you would think he'd want her dead for knowing too much because he wants everybody dead.
I think he had like 2 or 3 people that he was tight with, but by the end he had nothing. They were all dead by then. And, basically Steve was like a Terminator. He like murdered all of these people, and he's so sad about killing that one kid. I'm like, bro, you killed everybody in town.
And that kid was probably inevitable to be like a villain anyway, so it's fine.
Do they find out then that it was a real gun, or I think they find out later that it was a real gun?
I forget when exactly they find out, but I thought Tobias and Steve had it out about it.
They had it out at the Unicorn. They had a conversation about. I know the other bartender was there when Tobias pulled the gun out and laid the gun on the bar, and he was like, oh, it's just my piece for protection. And here it was the gun that the kid had. But I know Steve finds out about it eventually because he goes back to being a cop.
Yeah.
Once Paige is safe, he goes back to being a cop. Although Paige probably permanently needs a bodyguard because she just likes to walk right into traffic.
Yeah, right. She sure does. So what else? So we get to Nola starts making crank calls to Deborah.
This is happening all along. Like this starts
Yeah,
happening during Mansion of the
yeah.
Damned. These are all layered on top of each other.
I must say first, Nola ended up getting drunk at the Unicorn, which is how she came into Elliot's life.
Yes.
They had like Elliot kind of helped her sober up and get her back on her feet, whatever.
Elliot's
Almost
confusing because he's sometimes incredibly sweet.
no, he wasn't sweet. He was planning his next victim. That's what I think.
I feel like
It's true. I feel like he knew Nola was rich and he was setting it up like in case anything happened with Margo, I'll just be nice to this lady.
wow.
I think that's what he did, but that's what I think.
You're Elliot. My, you're cute, Elliot. Anybody ever tell you you're cute?
Oh, my mother did. Once.
You ought to be in pictures, Elliot. I ought to be in pictures, for that matter. Did you know I was in pictures?
Were you really?
You don't know who I am. You don't know who Nola Patterson is?
Nola Patterson. I'm not very knowledgeable about things like that, but I think I've heard your name before.
Well, I'm not dead, you know.
Most certainly not.
I'm not dead. Not retired. Just sleeping. I've been sleeping, haven't I?
Yes, you had a little nap. I trust you're feeling better.
Yes. I feel fine. Just fine. But I don't think I'll get up just now.
Well,
I think I'll just rest a little while longer.
That's right. You just relax and take it easy until your family gets here.
My family? What do you mean?
Yeah, that's why I called you home. And your son is coming to get you.
My son? No, you shouldn't have called him. I don't want Brian to see me like this.
That's all right.
No, I don't want him here. Tell him to go away. Don't let him in when he arrives.
Okay, I'll do that, Miss Patterson. Just relax.
Gonna hate me.
No.
They're all gonna hate me now.
No, they won't, Miss Patterson. They won't.
No, the name is Madison.
Ah.
Mrs. Madison.
Ah, yes. Okay, Mrs. Madison. Just relax. Boy, night for difficult women.
Whatever. I mean, it ended up working out too, which we'll get into
For
a little bit. So she starts making crank calls. She basically blames her blames Deborah for her marriage's demise. She dresses similar to her character from the movie, the witch thing, because I guess she knew that Deborah didn't see that mask or whatever. So this terrible old lady mask, like when she talks, like her lips don't even move.
It's like
really
a
weird.
Halloween mask.
Yeah,
I'm assuming because of the
creepy.
time constraints in doing the full face age makeup like that they decided to do that. And she got the idea from a girl on the street selling newspapers. She saw an old lady selling newspapers and she's like, that's it. That's my muse. And that poor woman, can you imagine seeing Mansion of the Damned and you're just like, I'm the witch? What the hell?
Yeah, right. And she basically rents the apartment across the hall from Deborah, and like
brilliant.
it really is a good setup. And I don't know how long she's laying in this apartment, but she starts like kind of screaming or like making these old lady noises.
Somebody in there? You all right?
Oh, please.
door's open.
You all right? You ill?
Please, my pills. Over there. Over there.
Take as needed.
Thank you. Oh, thank you.
Deborah hears and goes in, and that's when, it all goes downhill.
She spends literally months befriending Deborah as this little old helpless lady across the street, and she comes over and has tea with her and cookies with her because Deborah's going through a lot. Like, why was Deborah off the force for like
Deborah, because of the gun thing. There was somebody was caught. Remember, she was questioning him. He got her gun.
Yeah, but that was after because she was, I guess she was just her neighbor in the beginning. And when Nola contacted, what's the drug dealer's name?
Benny.
And she started getting drugs and baking it into food to feed to Deborah. So Deborah was whacked out all the time. So Deborah went to interrogate a suspect and basically left her purse on the table with her gun in it. So the suspect got the gun. And this was right when she got a new police captain. This was the worst time for this to happen because he's sexist. And she loses the gun, and the guy has her with the gun, and they have to solve the situation. They do solve the situation, and he just basically suspends her for 2 weeks. And everyone has been telling him what a great detective she is. And she's just so whacked out that she's like literally the worst detective.
Yeah.
Because she's on drugs.
And she gets what happens was she starts getting poisoned, like you said, and she's getting poisoned like real slow. I forget. Do we know what the poison is?
It's a combination. Sometimes she gives her amphetamines, and sometimes she gives her she keeps mixing uppers and downers. So I'm pretty sure she's like dropping quaaludes in there because sometimes Deborah passes out and she's unconscious, and other times she's kind of shaky and paranoid. So like I think she's putting it in things like a bundt cake and soup and
soups.
Everything she brings to the house is laced with something.
There was one time we didn't mention Cliff, your boyfriend.
Cliff is such a stereotypical character.
So when you see so we have Calvin, we'll do the cops. So we have Calvin, Steve, Deborah, and Cliff. Cliff is a cop, or is he a DA that harasses?
He works for Logan in the prosecutor's department. So he's an assistant DA.
He's always hanging out at the office because he's obsessed with Deborah.
He basically spends all of his time sexually harassing Deborah Saxon.
And literally. She just laughs it off. She laughs it off. Like, I guess that normally happens in life.
Well,
so you're trying to make
she would have had to at that point in time. If she had said anything, they would have blamed her for everything, and she could have lost her job because she was making a fuss. Because of course, the lady detective would make a fuss,
right?
And we see that immediately when Derek Mallory comes on. He has that attitude, and it's just coming out of his ears.
Yeah, so we can bring him up, I think, now. So yeah, we have like a bunch of them at the, they try to, what are they trying to do? I'm trying to think of their storyline.
Well, what happened was
everything going around
Calvin got shot, and he was out for a while. So when he was back on desk,
didn't he get shot from one of the somebody trying to kill Paige? I think that's when he got shot. He was trying to protect him and Steve.
Yeah, it was in the big shootout at the Unicorn. Because they knew Guthrie was going to be there, so they came to save him, and Calvin got injured. Now, Calvin almost died, and his girlfriend came. I like her. I can't remember her name. And they were Star. Her name's Star. So
there you go.
they thought he wasn't going to walk again, but he did because it's a soap. And when he was on the desk job, the captain at the time was getting ready to retire, and he was out on vacation, and he was going to retire when he came back. So Calvin thought he was going to make captain, and then they brought Derek Mallory in.
Yeah.
And Derek Mallory comes in, and he, like, first off, they have the chief above Derek Mallory come in and talk to Calvin, which again made it seem like Calvin was going to get that promotion. And then he just totally got shunted over for Mallory, who comes in and is a hard ass from the jump.
And is sexist.
Yeah, he's super sexist. He comes in and he's immediately like, I don't know why women are in the police department. And then Deborah is just like whacked out of her mind because she's being poisoned at home. And she's trying to do her job, and like she was bringing people in, but like she was out of her mind. And
Those were hard episodes to watch. I felt really bad for Deborah as she was going through the
because
suffering.
she was going through it, and it's weird.
She didn't deserve that.
She had that thing going on with Owen, which was shady, and she kept trying to get out of it because she was like, Owen, like, what's going on with Nola? And then she still was in love with Steve because apparently at one point Steve proposed and she wasn't ready to get married, so they broke up.
Deborah is very wishy-washy. For those who don't know,
She doesn't know. She doesn't know what she wants. So she's.
I don't think she's not ready to settle down. I think she's in love with Steve. She does date Owen on the side, but like I don't even know if she knows she's dating Owen. I think she's just like, oh, this is my friend. We hang out, and he likes me. That's the way she looks at it.
I think she did. Eventually, like I think she loved Owen, but not the way she loved Steve. And the reason she keeps saying no to Steve is again the time period. Because if she married Steve, then Steve would start thinking of her as his wife, Deborah, not Detective Deborah. And she would be pushed into a role that she doesn't want, which is mom, wife, homemaker. Because most of the time at that point in time, you would then quit your job and stay home. And that's nothing she wants any part of. And she even says to Steve, she's like, would you start to see me that way? And Steve's like, yeah, I would. And she's like, well, then. And she's right. And like, I think it's kind of ballsy in a show that's on in 79 and 79, 80 to come out and be like, I'm a career woman. I'm a cop. I've worked really hard to become detective and I'm not going to marry you, even though I love you, because it will ruin my career.
Yeah.
Which makes Deborah a very lovable character, to be honest.
She does. I like Deborah a lot. Mm-hmm. So let's get into the Margo story from what you didn't say yet.
Okay.
So we have Margo and Elliot are together.
Margo
they seem in love.
Came on. She runs the news and radio station. She runs MON.
Yes. And Nicole works for her.
Nicole works for her, and she wanted April to work for her. Draper wasn't. See, as soon as she was kind of introduced as April's mother, she had to try and make it up to April that she kind of abandoned her. And she's kind of like, oh, the circumstances at the time. Because Margo is flighty about, like, you can't nail Margo down for details. She just doesn't let you. So she's trying to basically win her daughter's love. And Draper hates it because he's like, she's trying to buy your affection.
Well, I got to go into who Draper is.
Draper Scott is Mike Carr's partner at the law firm.
Mike Carr's partner and married to April.
Yes, April.
Yeah.
So Margo,
who is Margo's daughter.
So Margo is initially Margo Huntington, and she falls in love with Elliot because she's an older woman, which, by the way, I think she's in her 40s. She's very attractive. There was no reason to settle, but Elliot's hot. And she wants this young boy toy, so she buys him.
Elliot's not even that hot to me, but there's something about him. I don't know if it's the accent or his charm. Like he just has that charming quality. Because I don't think he's hot, but he is hot because he's charming. I don't know. I can't explain it.
I think
I don't know why I want him.
He knows you want him because you know, first off, that he knows what to do in bed because he's always sleeping with people. And they come back and they beg for it. Like that girl that was working.
That one
Margo,
girl.
She was like, again. And he was like, not now. And she's like, again. So he's good in bed. But the way he talks, he always says exactly what you want him to say. He's very smooth. He's very charming. And there's enough sincerity in his lies that make you just like kind of light up from within. So he did this to Margo. and she married him.
And I think he loves Margo in his own way, but I don't think he's in love with her. But I don't think he's in love with anyone.
I think he loves all women in his own way. I think
Right.
I think he's just I do think he loves Margo, but he still thinks he should be able to. He's a dog. He thinks he should be able to do whatever he wants. And she buys him the unicorn and she sets him up. And meanwhile, like April's starting to see that he's a pig. Everyone's starting to see that he's a pig except for Margo, which sucks.
Damn it.
So the whole storyline with Margo is that when she finally reconnects with April and they're starting to bond, and April starts to work at the station. So now she's got April and Nicole at the station, very girl power. Draper Scott gets an offer from New York from a law firm that Mike Carr knows, and they want to hire him. And this would mean that April and Draper would have to move to New York away from Margo. And Margo does not want this to happen. Margo doesn't want it to happen for Margo, but also because April said she didn't want to move away from Monticello. And as soon as she said that, Margo was like, I have carte blanche to do whatever I want to keep my daughter in town because she wants to stay here with me.
I forgot to say that Monticello was the town that we're in, but we don't really know where it is, right?
No, because it changes. Initially, Monticello was on the East Coast. You can tell from the call letters of Emma on station. It's like, I think it's W, which means it would be on this side. It would be K if it was on the West Coast. So, which is weird. Why do I know that? But anyway, so like, you know, from the call letters that it was initially set probably in the, I would say like Connecticut, Massachusetts area.
That's what I was thinking.
Because of how everyone talks. And then later on, I think it's set in California somewhere.
Okay.
And they never mention why. It might have been that shift from the one station to the other.
Yeah.
They don't really mention it, but they don't change the call sign for the TV station, which is weird.
Right.
But yeah, Margo's my favorite. I love her. But she is a delight in getting what she wants.
Well, hello.
Margo, is that you?
Well, David Henson, who else do you think you know in Monticello?
I had to read in a business magazine that you'd taken over WMON. The least you could have done was to drop me a line.
Oh, well, you know how awful I am when it comes to corresponding.
To what do I owe the honor of this call? What type of company are you planning to buy out this time?
Oh, no, I have heard you were in the hospital. I want to know how you're feeling.
I went for my annual physical the other day, and when they took my blood pressure, the gauge went tilt. I'll be out of here in no time.
Oh, well, I'm glad to hear that.
How did you know where I was?
Oh, I was informed by Draper Scott's wife.
Scott? Well, that's the young man my partners want to hire. I wasn't aware that you knew the young man.
Well, we are not just acquainted, David. Mr. Scott's wife is my daughter. He is my son-in-law.
No kidding. Marge, you never mentioned having a daughter?
Oh, that's a long story, David. I must admit the possibility of his joining your firm is another reason for this call.
I see.
I mean, unless I am mistaken, you do owe me a favor or two.
I can't argue about that.
Well, I'm calling to collect.
She actually calls New York, finds out that one of the members of the firm is a guy she used to have an affair with. And she calls in a favor and she's like, you owe me, or I'll call your wife and tell her how close we were. And she gets that guy to be the one guy that says no. And then Draper is obsessive about getting this job. And he was so mad he didn't get it. He nailed the interview and then came home and they were like, no, thanks.
Yeah. Due to Margo's
interference.
involvement. Yeah.
I'm on Margo's side. I agree with what she did.
Of course you did. I don't, because she's doing the same thing he would have done to April. So they're both fighting over April in a way.
Yeah, but I think in Margo's case, Margo actually listened to what April wanted and, of course, didn't discuss it with her or get her permission, because why would you? But, like, Draper heard that April said she didn't want to move to New York, and he didn't care because he's the man and she goes where he goes.
Right.
Again, it's 79.
So we're saved the best for last, and that's Raven.
Oh my goodness. Raven is the female Elliot Dorn.
No. I don't think she is. She's worse than him
Oh,
because she
excellent.
has no feeling.
That's true.
She has zero redeeming qualities. Only that she's probably one of the best assholes I've ever seen in a television series.
She's brilliant.
So, we don't get too much of Raven for 1979 because she does leave town, but we get her now when she comes back in 1980. But what we do have, I have Raven and Logan are together. They're married, happily in love, it seems.
hmm
He's happily in love. She's not. Um, they have a baby together. His name's Jamie. Um, she's at home one night. Elliot calls. This is, I guess, his side piece. Hey, you want to come over? Well, I'm watching Jamie, but I can leave for a half hour. So
Oh
she wants to
yeah.
leave her own baby for a half hour. She leaves him for over 2 hours.
He's little. Like he's like
He's
what,
a baby. He's fresh
less
out.
than 6 months. He's like very
He-
small.
Yeah. Leave him home by himself. I don't know where Elliot lived, unless maybe it was in the next apartment, but I don't think it's like that.
No,
I
it
think he's
was
across
far
town.
away from there. Yeah, it was across town.
Logan gets home. She says she was at a movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. I put she was banging Elliot, who was married to Margo.
Elliot was banging 3 girls in one go.
We have Geraldine busts Elliot in Raven and Logan's apartment.
Raven, is there something burning in your bedroom?
No, there... Geraldine, you can't go in there.
Oh, my God.
Good evening, Mr. Saxon. I thought it would be gauche of me to hide in the closet.
I rather wish you had.
Geraldine, look, you don't understand.
No, you're wrong, Raven. I understand perfectly.
So what are you going to do? Go run and call Logan so he can come here and throw his wife out the window?
I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do.
Well, I'll tell you what you can do. You can mind your own damn business. Look, don't ruin my marriage. Please don't tell Logan.
No. I'm not going to tell Logan. It would break his heart. And I'm not going to be the one to inflict that kind of pain on Logan.
You're a very kind woman.
Do I have your word? Because if you say one word to him, your precious little family of me and Jamie and Logan and you is finished. Do you understand that? If I lose my husband, Jamie loses his grandmother. If you say one word, you will never see your precious little boy again.
So that's how she gets busted the first time. But Geraldine, I don't know too much about Geraldine. I forgot to go back into her, but we'll do another special with Geraldine
But
because
very
there's
quickly
many.
about Geraldine, the one thing you need to know is that her son who is the legal father for Jamie. That's how she came into this picture, because Raven was with Kevin and Kevin was actually sterile. So she was cheating on Kevin with Logan, and then Kevin died. That's all you need to know. For now, that's what you need to know for now.
So Jamie's actually not Logan's baby.
No, he is Logan's baby. He's supposed to be Kevin's baby on paper. Legally, he's Kevin Whitney's baby. But it turns out in real life that Kevin Whitney was sterile, so it could not possibly be his baby. It's Logan's baby. But
but legally,
the baby is Raven
Logan's
and
Raven.
Kevin's.
So
that's why Logan has no rights to his own baby, because she had the baby when she was married to Kevin.
That makes sense. So Raven fakes sick because her and Logan are supposed to go out of town.
He's running for election.
He's running for election. He had to go somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
She puts the old thermometer in the hot water. Her temp's like 104 degrees.
It's like this Ferris Bueller type shit.
I know, Bueller. So yeah, she fakes sick. Whatever. He comes back early I forget why.
He missed her.
He finds Elliot and Raven together, but they're not like naked or anything. They're just together in the house. Um, and he just says he's going to leave and get Jamie. She says he cares more about him than her, and he slaps her.
Okay. What's the story? Has she been telling you lies about last night?
Last night? I thought your visitor arrived this morning.
She hates me, Logan. You know that. She hates me ever since I married her precious little son. She's always wanted to get back at me because of what happened between us.
Geraldine didn't tell me one word about him. All we talked about was your health. I asked her to come over here and make sure you weren't on your death.
She was lying to you. She knew that this was the perfect opportunity to get me back.
Just
because
shut
of
up
what
about
happened
Geraldine,
between
will you?
Kevin and I.
Anything that happened here is your doing. And you're not going to lie your way out of this.
Logan, I love you. I mean, you're being ridiculous. You're the only man in my life. You know that.
Just thank God you had the decency to get Jamie over to the Scotch before you started on your little party here.
I did not have a party. I was sick. I spent the whole night in there with a fever, and you know because you took my temperature.
Yeah. According to this, your coffee is getting cold. I'm leaving.
Where are you going?
I'm going to check on Jamie. I'm going to make sure he's all right.
Yeah, right. That's all you care about. You care more about the damn kid than you do me. Tell me something. Just how do you expect me to be faithful to somebody who needs a baby more than he needs his own wife? And you can give me a little kiss?
Bam! That was a good slap too. She goes to April and tells her she can have Jamie before she leaves to Europe. April, who we think can't have babies, and she thinks she can't have babies.
Well,
Who babysits for Jamie all the time when she's running around
she
doing
doesn't want to
whatever.
be a mother, but like April had fallen down the steps early on in her relationship with Draper and miscarried. And after that miscarriage, the doctor was like, "You will not be able to get pregnant again." Which,
Right.
so when Raven gave her Jamie, that may have been the only chance she had to have a baby, and that's why like Raven did it. She did it because she said April's my best friend, but really why she did it was to screw over Logan. And she basically and then it just becomes a huge problem between Logan and April and Draper because Logan and Draper are best friends.
Yeah. So that's pretty much it. She makes April basically take the baby. Logan comes back.
Mm-hmm.
April ends up finding out she's pregnant a couple months, like a few weeks later or
I
whatever.
thought that was really convenient because, I'm glad for her. I'm glad that she found out she was pregnant. But at the same time, I was really kind of angry with how Draper handled that whole situation because he was just like, it's Logan's baby, so give him the baby. And it's like April was grieving the miscarriage and had the papers from Raven giving her the baby. And they weren't sympathetic to April at all. They were just like, well, it's Logan's baby, give it back. Like Jamie's a piece of property.
Right.
And I kind of felt like they could have handled that with a little more tact, but Draper doesn't handle anything with tact. He just yells at everything. He's a lawyer. He's a lawyer.
All right. So that's all I really have with all of that stuff. So we could talk about where currently, what was the court stuff? Oh, so what Nola did.
Okay.
She started poisoning Miles.
Okay, so what happened was Miles found out that she was dressing as Mrs. Curdy, and he confronted her and said, "Knock it off." And she said, "Yeah, of course I'll knock it off." And then she poisoned his water.
Sprinkle some
He had like a big
whatever she had in her bag.
Yeah, he had a big water cooler, and she went over to the one that he didn't have on the water cooler yet because the one that was up was conveniently almost empty. And she took the little paper cap off and she dumped all the drugs she had into it. She was just like, "Screw that guy especially," and she put it in there. And then Miles is on speed. He's just so high, and like he drinks that water. He goes to the rap party for Mansion of the Damned and almost drops. No, it's New Year's, and he almost drops his wife off of the building because he's dancing with her too crazy and like leaning her over the side of Margo Dorn's penthouse balcony. And he's just super happy and laughy. And as it goes on, he gets worse and worse and worse. He gets more violent. He gets paranoid. Derek takes an unnatural interest in Nicole, and she's not interested at all. But Miles sees the interest and he becomes insanely jealous to the point where he's aggressive towards Nicole about it, which is unfair. And it just gets worse and worse and worse. He's like sleeping on a bench in the park. He's running around crazy. He's passed out in his office. He's missing patients. Like his whole life is falling apart.
Yeah, Nola could give two shits.
No, she
Nola
did that
could
to
do-
him.
Yep.
Yeah, and literally, she burnt down her own theater. Which led to the death of her oldest friend. She did. She burned it down. Eddie
There's
ran
no proof. You have no proof.
How dare you? But Eddie, she burned it down for she thought it would be the great end of Mansion of the Damned. If the place burned down, it would like solidify the curse. And she did that. And Eddie ran into the building and he died, which of course led to Brian and Paige and Owen and Nola breaking up forever. And Margo had found out what a dog Elliot was and threw him out. And then Nola just picked him right up while she was still obsessing over Owen. He was flirting with her because he's got to replace his rich sugar mama with another rich sugar mama.
Right.
And she falls in love with him. And then the storyline gets complicated because Margo keeps screwing over Draper so he can't get this job. And I love it. So April people are finding out one by one that she's doing this. Mike Carr and his wife Nancy find out, like they have suspicions. Mike Carr goes to New York. I remember we were watching this and I was like, Mike Carr, mind your own damn business. And he went to New York and he found out about it and he was smart. He was like, why bother telling Draper? It's over. He didn't get the job. Let it go. And Nancy's like, I don't know, maybe we should tell him. But then it doesn't matter because the next person that finds out is April. And April confronts Margo and April's like, why? And she's like, because you wanted to stay here and I wanted to make that happen for you. And she's like, that wasn't your decision to make. Like, you shouldn't be doing that.
Was he, wasn't it? I mean, Margo, I can ask Henson. Draper is going to see him. I don't have to do it. And I already know. You were the one. You were the one who kept Draper from getting that job in New York.
Maybe you just don't understand how I felt, how I feel.
How could you have done something so unforgivable?
I did it for you.
For me? You did it because you hate Draper.
No, I don't hate Draper. Oh, for heaven's sake, if I hated Draper, don't you think I'd want him out of my life? Darling, I didn't talk to Henson because of any feelings I have for Draper. I talked to him because I care so much for you.
Well, I can't believe that.
But when you came to me and told me you might be going to New York and I saw how unhappy you were about it, how upset you were.
Of course I was upset about leaving, Margo. Why wouldn't I be?
Well, you didn't have to leave, you see. You didn't have to leave your new home, your family, your...
No, why? Because Margo arranged it. You arranged it, Margo. Don't you understand how horrible that is?
Why? Draper has a good job here. He has a fine future right
here. That was not for you to decide. Draper was ecstatic about the possibility of working for one of the most prestigious forms.
Draper is so selfish. He was only thinking about himself.
And what about you?
April, it's taken me 25 years to
don't
find my door.
Lie. The only reason you didn't find me was because you didn't want to know where I was. You knew where I was and you just didn't care.
God, you sound just like Draper.
Yeah, Margo. Well, Draper isn't always wrong.
He would have been wrong if he had taken you to New York, away from everyone that you care for, everyone that cares for you. I've never seen you look at me like this before. Looking at me with such hatred. Oh, God, what a mess I made of everything.
Don't you understand? Don't you realize what'll happen if Draper finds out the truth? He has been so bitter. He would be angry enough to kill.
And
right.
Margo lies and calls the guy in front of her and says, call it off, let him have the job. And as soon as April leaves the room, she calls him back and she's like, no, it's still on, forget it. And then that guy ends up dying. And it's just like, what is happening? So Margo's on her own and Draper finds out all of this. And he's like, I'm going to come to your house and beat your ass. And Margo's like, not right now, not right now. I have an appointment. And he's like, in an hour, I'm going to come to your house and
Yeah.
beat your ass. And she's like, if you have to come tonight, come in an hour, meet me in the penthouse, blah, blah, blah. And April goes, I want to go with you. And Draper is, of course, in angry man mode. And he's like, no, you can't go with me. And then he wanders around for an hour. And this dumbass goes into the building, goes upstairs, and finds Margo dead. And
She's not dead.
She's basically dead.
She's on her way out.
Yeah. She's been.
But she was hit by, what is that, the fire poker?
Yeah, she was hit in
thing?
the back of the head with a fire poker. And he does exactly what he's supposed to do. He calls the police. But when he calls the police, he hears a noise outside and he picks up the other poker and goes outside. So now they have his fingerprints on a poker because whatever. And then we get to see the police be incredibly inept for like 10 episodes. They don't know. They don't do a good job on the timeline. They don't do a good job on the evidence. This is because Deborah is distracted. I promise you that's why. Because Deborah's got Guthrie. She can't concentrate.
So Draper's basically the one that they suspect, and they don't know who else would have done it.
Right. So he goes,
And he had the motive, and he was pissed.
he had the motive. He was angry with Margo for what she did, interfering in his life. And there's a pattern of problems between him and Margo because Margo paid the down payment on their house just for funsies. And Draper, instead of saying thank you, got very angry about it because he's aggro.
And we must point out, a little bit earlier on, Nola started dating Elliot. Elliot and her started seeing each other, and she kind of stopped poisoning Deborah for a little bit. I feel like
she
was like, "I'll take a break."
Well, after Miles, she did stop because she knew Miles knew, and as long as Miles was alive, she couldn't do that. So I think she was literally waiting for Miles to kick it so she could go back to poisoning Deborah, or maybe she was distracted by Elliot and she didn't care anymore.
Yeah, and she used the rest of her drugs on Miles as water.
Right.
So
Either way, Owen took the movie. He went to California to cut the movie. So Owen's like out of sight, out of mind. So now it's Elliot all the time. And meanwhile, Elliot's doing the same old shit. He's sleeping with people. He's going like running around town doing whatever he wants. And what happens is they go to trial and they put Cliff in charge of prosecution because nobody wants to do it. And Mike Carr is, of course, the defense. And Mike Carr puts up a very emotional but crap case for Draper. He has no evidence, nothing, no reasonable doubt. He does a piss poor job. And Cliff, who is an ass in every other aspect of his life, is actually a really great lawyer. And he presents a case. And the thing is, they can't figure out, the timeline is so tight that they can't figure out how anyone else would have gotten in and gotten out in the time it took for Margo to go up the elevator and be attacked by Draper, who came in literally right behind her and went up the elevator. Margo dies in the hospital trying to say who killed her. And she says no when they say they were trying to be like, it's not Draper, blah, blah, blah. And she says no. And they take that to mean, yes, it is Draper because of the way the question was phrased. And a doctor overheard it. So his goose is cooked. Meanwhile, April's pregnant and her husband's about to go to prison for the rest of his life. And her mother dies. She has nothing. She has nothing. She's in the hospital. It turns out that Nola is a genius. And she pulls this whole caper off because she goes up and murders, leads to the murder of Margo. She hits her with the poker. She goes up and she's like, divorce Elliot. And Margo's just like, no, because I'm doing you a favor. He's a scumbag. I'm not divorcing him. Literally move on. And she gets mad and she basically murders Margo. And then she disguises herself as Margo using Margo's backup hair. Like Margo has backup hair for when she doesn't want to do hair.
Piece.
Yeah. So she steals a wig, dresses as Margo, goes downstairs, like leaves the building like by the garage, and then comes back in to go back upstairs and then goes immediately back downstairs and leaves. And as Draper's going upstairs, it's very complicated. It's a lot of up and down, up and down.
Yeah.
And so she completely gets away with this until Deborah is not on drugs anymore. She's not distracted by Owen anymore. And she goes, it can't be Draper. He's our friend. But it's too late because Draper got convicted.
So that's what I'm guessing Margo was trying to say, Nola.
Yes, she was
And
trying
she
to say
said
Nola.
no.
And then died.
That's
By the
really
way,
clever. I didn't get
brilliant.
that until you were saying it, and I was like, oh shit. She
Because
was
they were
trying to
like,
say who killed her.
because April was in the room and she said two questions like really fast, and one of them was who killed you, and the other one was like Draper didn't do it. Like she ran the whole sentence together. Like April talks very like me. April talks very fast, and when she said the question, she basically said, "Well, who killed you?" Blah blah blah, and she goes no, and then dies. So she was trying to say Nola, but the doctor heard it as her denying that it wasn't Draper. So
Right.
Draper ends up getting convicted, and they're still looking into the case. And now April has the baby because of stress, and
Yes.
the baby's in the NICU. April's in the hospital. Draper has to come say goodbye to her, and they give him like 5 minutes, and it's just like he hasn't even told her yet that like he's been convicted and he's going to prison. Like
Right.
he's lying to her because he wants to have 5 more minutes with her. And they're like, oh yeah, by the way, it's time to go. We're putting you on a train. You're going to the Supermax jail. And they send a detective to handcuff himself to Draper, and then they take the train. The
On
funny
the
thing
train
about
to New York, right?
yeah, and the funny thing about this is that April's been having dreams this entire time about a mysterious man coming and presenting a present that's a silver bracelet. And we're all like, April, what the hell is this? She even gets the name of the baby Julia from one of her dreams because she has these weird prophetic dreams.
Yeah.
And it turns out they have the baby's a girl, they name the baby Julia. And when they're going to prison, there's a flash flood and the train goes off the tracks and it's exploding. It's full of fire. Best special effects I've ever seen in a soap opera ever.
It was good.
It was like fire, sparks, everything. People are screaming. And it turns out the cop gets pinned. And the cop's like, I never believed you did it. And he unhooks the handcuff from Draper and he puts it on the body of somebody who's already dead. He's like, I'm so dramatic. Oh my God. I was like, and he's like, Draper's like, no, I'm going to get you the hell out of here. And the guy's like, I think his name is Sam. He's like, I'm dying. It's too late. I'll never get out of here. And he's screaming all his lines, which was a little intense. And he's just like, you get out of here. Get out of here. And there's a woman screaming for help off in the distance. And I just keep yelling, save that one. Like, just save that one. So he does. And he gets off the train and he runs into the woods. And the train basically explodes and they're finding burnt bodies everywhere. And the only way they know it's Draper is because Draper's handcuffed to the cop and they identify the cop. So now April's mother is dead. April's baby is in the NICU. And April's in the hospital and her husband just died.
And meanwhile, I think Deborah wasn't letting it go because she like kind of suspected. I don't know if she suspected Nola, but
she did.
What led her to Nola though?
Because she was so sus every time they went to the house to question her. She was just very odd about the entire affair because like they came to question Elliot a lot and they had to prove Elliot's bullshit alibi. Elliot's alibi was he was banging somebody else randomly.
Oh yeah, we didn't mention that. Brings us back to who was he banging?
Raven.
Good old Raven's back.
Raven had come back to town secretly and she appeared at the trial to give him the alibi. So once he was alibied, they were like, if Nola can disguise herself all the time and she's a master at makeup, why couldn't she disguise herself as Margo? Because the only two people that had beef other than Draper would be Elliot and Nola because Nola wanted to marry Elliot. So they eliminated Elliot because he's a pig. And then they only had Nola. And Nola was up to no good. And Derek kept saying, can we not bring charges against Nola? She poisoned Miles. She poisoned Deborah. And everyone was like, no, we don't want to bring charges. And that was insane to me. So Deborah goes, we're going to investigate every avenue of this. And she went back. She went back to the penthouse with the boys. And she found the empty wig box. And the guys are like, so what? And she's like, no, you don't understand. This is an expensive wig if it's not here, it would be at the place where they style it. And if it's not at the place that they styled it, Nola could have taken that wig and faked being Margo. She like jumps to that conclusion. And this is where we really get to see that Deborah is the best detective on the force. And you see Derek go from being sexist to being like, Deborah's our best cop. She's like the best one on the force. Like he literally lets it go in the course of like 2 months. He's just like,
and she even tricked Nola because she bring that hairpiece, but it was like not the same hairpiece.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she came in
and she tricked Nola into confessing.
What she did was she went into the house and she said, we have a search warrant. And she lied because cops are allowed to lie. And she went upstairs and brought a hat box down that was the same type, which they had snuck in earlier. And it wasn't the wig. She had the wig outside, but she convinced Nola to say to be like, it's the wig. You didn't get rid of it. You have it. Why didn't you get rid of it? You may as well confess we have you. And Nola does, because Nola's drunk. Because they had brought her a copy of Mansion of the Damned, and she had decided, because Elliot was screwing around on her, to get tanked as hell and watch Mansion of the Damned.
Watch the movie,
which was awesome. Nola is so awesome, and she literally just confesses to everything. The cops, and they just call, and they're like, it's too late. Like Draper's already dead, and we caught Nola, but Draper's dead.
Who knows? Perhaps it was some kind of providence, a sort of mercy killing, don't you think? The poor man faced years and years in prison.
It was for nothing, Nola. For absolutely nothing. Because he didn't kill Margo Dorn. You know he didn't. You killed her.
Deborah.
There. You see what I mean? You see what I've had to put up with while you were out doing whatever it was you were doing? She comes into this house with that ridiculous wig.
The stolen wig, Nola.
Please, darling, stop this. For heaven's sake, don't you realize you don't have to play this game anymore? You don't have to find some way out for your friend Draper. He's gone.
That doesn't change what you did, Nola. It doesn't change the facts.
Deborah, you're upset. Look, Nola couldn't have done it any more than I could have done it. Draper was alone with Margo when it happened.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's right. He was alone with her, but not when it happened. Margo was attacked an hour before he even got there.
What?
It's true. You know, I really found out. I finally understand exactly what happened in the penthouse that night. And it's so simple. It's so much simpler than I ever imagined. You were at the penthouse an hour before, Nola. You gave your name as Nola Patterson. You went to see Margo to make one last try at changing your name to Nola Dorn.
I know that.
Yeah.
It was sad. Intense. Very intense.
It was. That was a really good one.
Yeah. And what happened to Draper?
He forgets what's happening. He doesn't remember anything, and he gets taken in by this crazy old lady and this crazy young lady. And that's where Draper's at.
Yeah. When we get to the end of where we are currently, poor Draper was injured in the train accident. He has amnesia, and he knocked on a door for help, and he knocked on the wrong door. This crazy girl is just like, he's definitely my husband who died. And his housekeeper is like, call the police.
We're gonna end the story here because the story goes on, and it's still going, and it's crazy. And we
I
still
recommend this show. I absolutely recommend you watch this show for 20 minutes. Like, it's so
yeah.
It's
and
so
it has like 5 years left. We still got to watch. Hopefully, it's all there, but.
And we're not we're not even covering so much. Like, Benny, the drug dealer, is hilarious. Nancy is so clever. Like, there's so much going on that we just
there's a lot.
We scratch the surface.
Well, we can do another special again in the future. I just wanted to make sure we did it for the 68th anniversary. How crazy is that?
68 years. Wow.
68 years ago, and it aired for 28 seasons. So, damn. Good run. And we want more. Let's bring Edge of Night back. Bring it back.
Yeah, reboot it.
I think a lot of them are still alive too. Could you imagine? We'll get them all back.
Wow.
But anyway, we'll wrap up this special episode of Queers and Soaps, The Edge of Night, which my t-shirt Karen made with Raven on it. Thanks for joining us. I hope you liked the special. We worked hard to try to bring it to you because we had so much fun watching this show and we love it so much.
Yeah.
Follow us on all the socials. Subscribe, like, comment on what you loved about Edge of Night. We would love to see some stories that you got, some stories you remember because we want more. We'd love to see stuff from the 60s and 70s. And have a good day, everyone.